What's up? Welcome to Chatt It Up Sports. On today's show, we have got a special guest for you, the Rocky Top Insider himself, Mr. Ryan Schumpert. All things Tennessee Vols. You know we got to talk a little bit more about Nico. I've got a big question for the boys. Who's to blame when it comes to this whole debacle that is Tennessee football? As I'm just knocking shit over in the studio. With that being said, let's hit it. You know, sometimes, Chase, the fires are just too late. You get a little bit too excited, and some things just, go flying around in the studio.
That's all right, man. That's all right, dude. The fires are lit. Nico is causing all sorts of chaos, even in our studio.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you, Chattanooga Lookouts. We have taken care of the sun, kind of.
Yeah. No, it's all good. We got it back up. I accidentally gave it a little people's elbow, and knocked it down, but. Man, good riddance for Nico Iamaleava. I don't want to see his face anywhere around the state of Tennessee, anywhere, ever again. And the question that I wanted to pose to you guys was, really, who's at fault here? Because I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, Nico's dad's an idiot. He screwed him out of $2.5 million, this, that, and the other thing. And we were talking about it off the air about, where's he going to go? Is there a world in which he doesn't get signed anywhere? Does he take a year off of football? And I promise, Joseph, we will get into that because Joseph Guthrie is behind the scenes. And what's up again? I'm Greg Larner. This is Chase Green. That is the beautiful man behind the camera, Joseph Guthrie.
What a head of hair.
It is a great head of hair. He says he needs to get it clipped. Can we show that again, Joseph? Can you show yourself again?
Dude, it's long, man.
Looks so good.
Is this the longest it's ever been?
No. At one point I had it down the shoulders. Yeah. So it's getting close though. We're not far from that.
That was metal loving Joseph.
Yeah, that was
still metal
loving Joseph.
Yeah, we're just a little tame. We ain't going to shows. I ain't got the joints for that anymore.
No, certainly don't. But my question is, who's to blame here? Because again, there's a lot of differing opinions. Actually, there's not a lot of differing opinions. It seems like it's all on Nico, his camp, and more importantly, his daddy.
Yeah, and Shump's going to say it, but it's just a PR disaster. I can't take blame away from Nico himself because you are 20, but you still have dad being your champion. So I understand that part. Like, you're grown up, but you're not that grown up yet. Like, I remember that. Like, I still had to ask dad and mom for money. Like, so it's a little different now for Nico, but you still need mom and dad in your corner. I just worry that he didn't even stick up for himself, or maybe he just didn't want to. And boy, has that family taken a hit. Like, they're going to be the villain no matter what now.
Yeah.
I do feel like his dad's getting the worst of it now because he's the one making the decisions. And Schumpert, I wasn't sure if he was a problem, but high maintenance is the way he was described. So with that being said, you kind of already get the gist. Yeah. This was a nightmare. He came for money, and I don't know what we were expecting. Like, whenever the smoke started coming around, you're like, well, here it comes. We're the NIL problem. We started the whole, let's pay somebody real big money. And he kind of panned out to the magnitude of, like, you made the playoffs, but you're also like, well, that was more Dylan Sampson.
And carried by the defense.
And a really good defense. Yeah. So now Nico's dad, definitely top priority as far as who's to blame, and really screwed his son. Like, you're just not going to be in a good light outside of the fan base that you go to.
I want to throw something out at you guys because I think it was Ryan Clark who said this. Obviously, former NFL vet, works on ESPN, covers the league, the whole thing, analyst there for ESPN. He threw out the NCAA and Mark Emmert are most to blame. And I thought that was a really interesting point because there was a time in which the NCAA had an opportunity to begin to figure out how to pay players. And it seemed like it was inevitable.
Yeah.
And Mark Emmert was so against it. The NCAA was so against it. And then we got the NIL. And it kind of took on a life of its own, and it's just been like opening Pandora's box. And now I don't know how we close it. I don't know how we cap it. I don't know how we restrict it. I don't know how they have any guidelines. Mark Emmert and the powers that be within the NCAA, a little, not too long ago, years back, again, had an opportunity to figure out the best way with guidelines to pay players in college athletics. They let it go by the wayside, staying with their stringent line of thinking of, hey, it's amateur sports. They're not going to get paid. They're not going to get paid under our watch, this, that, and the other thing. Just sort of the old white man way of thinking. And
here we are.
Here we are. Now Pandora's box is opening. Nico Imaliava is holding out in college athletics. There's a holdout in college athletics. Are you kidding? This is not pro sports, but it's sort of turning into pro sports light.
Oh, it's very much so. I mean, we're here. We're here, and it's just pro sports with no structure.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem, that there is no structure within this whole NIL situation, and it's not good for anybody involved. Now, look, the players that have been in this day and age, I'm sure they're not complaining too much because they're making a whole bunch of money.
And it's going through the roof. And you're going to have this in the first 4 or 5 years because these donors like, I can make a real difference now.
Yeah.
You definitely,
legally.
you definitely were before, but now my name's in stone somewhere because I donate this money instead of being hidden under a rug because I was given that side cash. Now you're getting praised for what you were doing before. And that adds an ego element to a very rich group of men and women. I hate to say it. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
Like you want that new practice facility to be named after you. Sweet. Donate $12 million. They'll do it. Donate $60 million. There's billionaires. Obviously with Michigan, me and Joseph talked about that. Bryce Underwood has set this expectation, and the Bradys and the Portnoys and all those other rich folks up there are setting just crazy standards. But guess what? Tennessee did it first. We set that standard. We paid Nico. We did it. And this is wild. But that's a good point. I was kind of thinking now, the NCAA doesn't really they're not paying through NIL, like NIL. So in my mind, I'm like, could they have put structures into place earlier on? Like, you have to have an agent. You have to do this. They could have jumped in sooner, like you mentioned. Now, because they were so mad that people were getting paid, also have the thought of, and because they've been so petty, were they kind of like, I'll just let you guys figure it out for the first 5 years.
Probably.
I'll let you guys figure it out until we decide to jump in on this. And now they're going to do it. And, we've got all the rulings now for how they're going to pay through the TV rights and yada, 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 all that stuff that will get figured out sooner rather than later, hopefully. But now I'm to the point where I think the NCAA just was super petty. It was like, Wild, Wild West. Here we go. Let them rip. I'm going to screw all you guys. And here we are screwing each other over because dads are agents. And I know Josh Pate talked. We were listening to that earlier, Joseph. Pate's just like, I could be an agent. My cousin could be an agent. And now we have dad being an agent, and it's terrible. It's so terrible. And he has to wind up getting the correct agency, I guess, now. Right, Joseph? He wound up getting an agent?
Yeah, so word on the street is that Nico's hired like an actual agent, and it's not just a family member that's wearing like a sport coat and a pen in the pocket saying like, yeah, I can make sure you're,
he got
getting the money that you deserve.
3 for $100 out at Jesse Bank, baby.
Exactly. He did. It's somebody that actually knows what they're doing, and someone who probably represents other athletes. So I don't know for 100% without a shadow of a doubt that he has. That's just word on the street, is that Nico has official representation now that he probably should have had, because it probably should have been a requirement when the NCAA just like, you know what, you want transfer portal? Here you go. You want NIL? Here you go. You can just pay players whatever. But no, here we are. It's going back to Greg's question earlier. This is really like a multi-level at who's at fault. So like the immediate answer was like, okay, Nico's representation.
Yeah,
that's who's at immediate fault. Okay, well, you have to understand the University of Tennessee. They're not completely innocent here either, because they knew what they were getting into when they went after this quarterback the way they did. They had to sue over his recruitment. They ended up winning that deal, so that was a whole thing. And then the top level is the administrative powers of college football that decided that, okay, you know what? Instead of us just because you want to pay players and because you don't want to listen to us and you don't want to do it our way, we're just going to remove everything and we're just going to make it the Wild Wild West. And you can just do whatever you want to, and you can hand players a bag of money, and you can, you know what, you can hand a player $100,000, and if they decide they want to leave in 3 weeks, there ain't nothing you can do about it. You just kind of have to deal with it. So it really comes from there not being an administrative body that, number one, can set rules and set a schedule for college football, but can also enforce their rules, because the rules still exist. The rules that prevented players getting paid, those are all still written and codified, but there's no enforcement. So it'd be like if you had written rules for society and all the police officers just disappeared. It's like, okay, well, you're not supposed to do that. Okay, well, who's going to stop me? That's your big issue. It's not that these rules and these guidelines don't necessarily exist, but they might as well not, because there's no enforcement. There's no body that can hold these schools accountable for tampering or for choosing to pay a player $12 million out of high school without having seen him take a college snap. Like, there's nothing to stop. There's nothing to hold these schools accountable. I mean, it's like the whole debacle we went through with the Connor Stallions situation. Yeah. What did Michigan really, what really happened to Michigan? Nothing. They won a national title.
Yeah.
Now, am I saying Connor Stallions is the reason they won that national title? I don't think so. But they did some shady stuff.
He had a hand in it.
He contributed, but I wouldn't say he was the sole. Like, I wouldn't look at Michigan's national championship and be like, yeah, that's invalid because Connor Stallions. Like, I'm not going to do that. But that's your big issue, is that you don't have enforcement of rules. So you can't stop a school or an agent or a father or a shady uncle or somebody's aunt that's 3 times removed on their brother's side. Like, you can't stop them from negotiating with these collectives. And some of these regular people, I know the whole Nico situation and him having poor representation is kind of blown up in their face, but some of these people are probably actually pretty decent at it. And their whole goal is to pull as much money as they can. And it's not good for the sport. It's not good for the players. It's not good for the universities. Until we get some kind of administrative body that can enforce rules, you're probably not going to see. You're probably going to see another situation like this, where later on in May, somebody that a team's really counting on is like, "I'm out, guys, because so and so is going to pay me $2 million, and y'all are only paying me like 1.2."
Yeah. Well, can you guys imagine what it would be like if LeVar Ball was?
That's the kind of person I was thinking about.
While NIL was happening with his kids.
The bullet we dodged.
Oh my gosh. Like, he was sort of like NIL before NIL was actually a thing, because he was getting free publicity to go on ESPN and debate Stephen A. Smith talking about his kids. And he was talking about how he would beat Jordan out in a one-on-one cup. Like, he would say the craziest shit, and everybody would watch just because you want to see what's next out of his mouth. He as much as we all hated him,
I know,
he did it the right way.
He was the train wreck you can't stop watching.
Yes, he did it the right way with his kids. Got them publicity, he got them paid, he got them in the league, he got them notoriety, and they were very high draft picks, 2 out of 3.
And the other one's got a banger of a song.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you,
it's pretty good.
I like it.
It's pretty good.
And he's rich now too, so the kids did what they wanted to. Like, I somehow, some way, LeVar Ball made his dream come true with his kids being super rich.
He did. Now we never hear from him again. Nope. We've never heard from him again.
He's like Thanos. He's like, I'll rest.
Yeah,
I'll rest.
I'll rest now. I'm done. I snapped. I got 2 out of 3 in the league. One of them got incredibly hurt, but still got paid. The other one is a star for the worst team in the league.
Terrible. Yeah, they're so bad. Don't go to Charlotte Cooper Flag. I hope not, buddy.
Don't do it. Well, he's a Duke Blue Devil, so you go enjoy your misery.
Nobody wants to go join in that misery, bro. Nobody wants to go join in that misery.
Ball's good.
He's all right.
He's pretty good.
He's one of those guys, good stats, bad team guy.
Yeah. He
You
puts up good stats. We've never seen him on a good team though, with legitimate players around him. Maybe he wouldn't be a bad team guy if he was on a better team with better players around him, more mature players.
Maybe
around him.
Maybe.
You never know.
He's one of those guys, and I'm like, he'll put up really good stats on a bad team. Now he's also somebody. Whenever he's like 29, he's like, I'm grown up. I want to go win. I'm going to take a big old back seat, but I've also made a ton of money.
Like Porzingis.
Porzy, great example.
Yeah.
Sorry, New York Knicks.
Hey, that's okay. I mean, we drafted him. We thought he was going to be the savior, the unicorn, the whole thing, and he just turned out not to be that guy. Like, he's not a number one on a championship level team.
No.
That's just not him. But he can be a 3 or 4, and you can win a championship with that. Like, that's what ball has to be.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
Because it's happened. It's what we do. We riff, bro. We riff.
Mellow.
Bringing us back to
thank you
to Nico and to really the NIL situation, because we haven't seen it yet, and it's something we talked about pre-show, Chase, and I know you wanted me to bring it up. I tweeted this out when they On 3 had put out an article about North Carolina was out on Nico, and I tweeted out, quote tweeted it, and I said, "Are we prepared for a world where Nico gets about half what he was getting at Tennessee? It ends up at like a mid-major, at like a UNLV or like a Tulane or something like that." And when I brought that question up to you, also it made me think about and posed as well: are we prepared for a world where Nico doesn't get signed by anybody, and Nico actually ends up not playing football next year for anybody in D1? Like, is that could be a legitimate possibility? And if it does, what do you guys think the blowback is from that? Like, if somebody watches a prominent 5-star surefire starting quarterback for a Power 4 SEC school go from that to one PR disaster that took place over the course of 72 hours, and all of a sudden he's not playing football next year, it's hard for me to imagine that, because he is very talented and there's the upside is there, but there's a potential where that world exists, where none of these schools need a quarterback bad enough, or they just don't want to take on the PR nightmare.
Chase, how good was Nico Iamaleava last year?
10th best quarterback in the SEC.
I think there's a really good possibility that there is a world that ends up not having Nico Iamaleava in Division I football next year, this coming year. Because if he were that good, I understand he was a highly touted prospect. I get it. 5 stars, nothing less. Make sure you tell a friend. That's Chatt It Up Sports, by the way. Shameless plug. I had to.
Love it. Marketing
101. Anyways, so yeah, if there was a world in which he was the 5-star guy, he came out, he's out there throwing bombs and beating Alabama and beating Georgia and getting the Tennessee Vols to the number 1 team in the SEC, getting them deep into the college football playoff, if not to a national championship game, there might be a world in which Tennessee would have paid him $4 million. And even if they didn't, somebody would pony up and do that. But did Nico do that last year?
He sure did not.
He didn't.
Disaster of a game.
Yeah, real bad. Look, the kid is tough as nails, and he showed that in that game against Ohio State where we're getting beaten, battered, and bruised.
Yeah.
He's a tough-nosed kid. Don't believe that he has all the talent in the world right now. And in that case, I just don't think somebody's going to pay him $4 million. Again, we said it in the beginning of the Open. We'll say it when we talk to Schumpert. But he royally screwed this up because he had an opportunity to make $2-ish million at the University of Tennessee and be a college football playoff contending team for the next year or two. And then be a probably decently high draft pick in the NFL.
Yeah.
Is there a world? Can you see a world where that happens?
So I guess my biggest thing is everything in this scenario is all about leverage. I would like to know if dad or agent or whatever was trying to leverage, hey, we've got Tennessee on the ropes too. What if that other program now, whoever that might have been, maybe that was Carolina, maybe that was whomever, maybe that was USC in the smoke. They're like, well, you're definitely not going to get that. Hype will shut that down real quick. Start to second guess yourself. Money starts to go down. Parents get mad. Nico's not happy. Well, I don't really want to go to this place. I don't want to go to Tulane. I'm going to go take a demotion in popularity. Clearly, if it's about money, you also want notoriety, and then you just screwed yourself out of being in one of the most popular fan bases. I mean, you're on national TV all the time.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get game day at least once, and if you do well, maybe twice. Like, notoriety, money, like, just do well at Tennessee, you will get paid. Yeah. It makes no sense in my mind to try to like out leverage right now. Probably the overall best sports program in the country. Probably the overall, with softball, baseball, basketball, and football all being at a pretty elite level.
Nationally ranked in all those sports.
In all those sports.
Yeah.
And as of right now, you're probably looking at College World Series in both men's and women's, like in softball and baseball. So you get Elite Eight plus playoff. Like this is unprecedented territory. And you're going to try to out leverage Danny White? Get out of here, dude.
Silly.
Get out of here, Dad. It just breaks my heart that like there's so much ego in this and so much falsified ego from Dad in this situation that you really just screwed your kid out of a chance to, if he just, I don't know what his stats would have to be next year, but he was what, 19-5?
He was 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think 11 of those touchdowns came against UT Chattanooga, UTSA, and Vandy, yes. I believe.
Yes. So let's say you get to 28, and I'll throw in a couple extra picks. 28-7, he finally gets a set of balls on him, so starts throwing some darts. Then you are to the point of not Heisman contention probably, but you're at a point now where it's like, man, I see some stuff. You've taken off the blinders, you've taken off the freshman jitters and whatnot, and you're playing this offense. You're on national TV all the time. It matters. It matters big time. You take off some of that money. I know you mentioned that, like, and Schumpert mentions this as well. Is like you take off a couple extra $1 million and go get you some better wide receivers. I know Thornton and them didn't really work out and like you'd hoped, but we get some stud wide receivers. You get one of those sweet tight ends that everybody's getting around these days. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. But you tried to out leverage a place that has the most leverage in probably all college sports right this second. Maybe not in just general football, but overall right now it's like we're the most popular fan base in a collective all sports. Good luck, man, trying to big boy us.
I'm glad you brought up leverage specifically because it makes me think about did y'all hear the story about Dan Lanning in this?
Yeah. Actually, I was going to bring that up next.
So perfect. I was going to ask what are y'all's thoughts? Because I mean, we've heard of tampering and we've heard of coaches poaching players on rosters. This feels like to me the first instance where we've heard of a coach tipping off another coach, like, "Hey, your quarterback's being shopped. Like your quarterback's is on the market. Whether you know that or not, somebody's trying to essentially get more money for Nico." How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts?
Feels good. I hope the collective coaches band together and be like, hey, we're not gonna get screwed. I wouldn't do that for you, and you wouldn't do that for me. Dan seems like an upstanding guy, so this one,
despite whatever Miggy has to say about him,
yeah, you want that band together.
We love Dan.
You want that band together. These coaches be like, we ain't gonna get run over.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of power taken away from the coaches in all of college sports nowadays. When it comes to recruiting, when it comes to scholarships, you can't take away scholarships anymore. What you give them is what they get. I think you can reduce them a little bit, but you can't. If you give them something, you can't take it away. So it's tough. Like it's more difficult nowadays to be a college coach than it ever has before, because you're dealing with these egos and this money and everything that comes with it. I'm with you, Chase. Like, I love what Dan Lanning did. I respect the heck out of what he did. I hope more coaches do that. And again, I hope more coaches come out and don't sign Nico. Like, just let him just dangle around there in the transfer portal. Put your damn foot down and set the precedent that, hey, we are not going to allow these players to run over us. The players have so much power nowadays.
So much power.
They have so much power. And Nico and his representation and his dad, his family, whatever it may have been, they tried to leverage that power and use that power to railroad the power T.
Yeah.
And Heupel said, Danny White said, get off the track, big dog, because you're about to get run down.
No.
We're not having it. And you can get it out of Dodge if you're not playing that game. And they weren't playing that game. Nico had 3 games, over 250 passing yards last year.
Yeah.
That's it.
1
over 300 against Chattanooga. I love the Power C, but come on.
Game 1.
Game 1.
Do you guys feel like this might have been the final big push? Coaches are going to get together. These GMs are getting hired faster. I think this might have been the final push where they're like, all right, we have to lean in more to the pro version of structure. Let's all get together. I really do feel like this was such a PR thing, and especially with it being Tennessee and Nico and all the things around it. I think this might have been one of the biggest pushes we're going to see on making it like, all right, it's a pro game now. We just got to lean into it.
I think it could be. I think it could be one of the last initial waves before you see the we'll call it the North Carolina model come in, where you have a head coach and then you have a GM, and your GM handles that, and GMs talk to other GMs, and it's like, hey, we essentially set the market value on players instead of letting players set the market value on themselves because they play a certain position or they have a certain star ranking depending on who's rivals 247 or on 3 who's rating them. But like, I think it's one of the last initial waves, especially before we get into rev sharing and what that whole model is going to look like, where GMs will start to kind of band together and they'll let head coaches start to be coaches again. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, okay, listen, I'll be the GM. I'll handle the market side. You go coach football, because that's what you were initially hired to do, was coach football and recruit. You got to recruit if you're high school. But like allocation of funds, budget, all that GM side, we'll handle that. Kid comes in, says, hey, we're demanding $5 million. Oh, well, market value on you, dude. Look at your stats. Like, talking to other GMs, you're sitting at about 1.6. You're not going to get $5 million. And we'll start to see what On3 jumped on early with these NIL valuations for players. And of course, looking at those numbers, some were probably right, some were probably way off, because it was super early. It was super early valuing these kids, and because we really didn't know what schools were willing to pay for certain players. Like when Nico first came out and it was like $8 million, it was like $8 million for a kid you haven't seen take a snap on college football. And then, 3 years later, it's like $12 million for Bryce Underwood. Like, what are we doing? So I think we'll see a return to normalcy as the GM position gets implemented into college athletics. I think we'll see some kind of, not market reset, but a kind of cap, I guess is the word I would use there, where it's like, hey, we know what you're valued at. We know what other programs are willing to pay. We know what other programs have budgeted for a quarterback. We know who really needs a quarterback, and they're only willing to pay this much. So you're not going to get that out of us.
That's good.
That's a great point, Jay.
Yeah.
That GM model that your Tar Heels are implementing now with Billy Belichick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad what they did. I mean, because I was really worried when I was hearing they were the team. I was like, they were built not to do this, and they're going to be the ones to do this. So I'm very happy that situation didn't turn out that way. And who knows what's his name out of Troy? Joseph,
the head coach?
No, the quarterback that's transferring out.
You mean out of South Alabama?
South Alabama.
Oh, Gio.
Gosh,
was it Gio?
I said it earlier.
Yeah, no. Either way, so it's like,
is it Gio Lopez?
Yes, Gio Lopez. I
just
saw it on Twitter earlier today.
Yeah. He looks to be. So he entered the transfer, or is going to enter the transfer portal.
It opens on Wednesday, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So word on the street is North Carolina's the favorite. We'll see.
And that's the thing, is hopefully we see like what that evaluation is.
Yeah.
It's a wild, wild west out there for college athletics nowadays. Speaking of craziness that happened in sports, just quickly wanted to touch on the Masters, and congratulations to Rory McIlroy. I know there are some people that don't really like Rory and don't really like his demeanor when he plays and this, that, and the other thing. I don't know how you feel about him, Chase or Joseph, but I was happy for the dude. He's been so close. I think it was his 11th try at the major Grand Slam, and he finally does it. And it just feels like I was happy for him. I was rooting for him just because I feel like this dude over the last, like 4 or 5 years, it feels like he has been so close so many times to winning multiple majors, multiple tournaments, and he just always seems to be the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I went and looked this up, that he's got 17 top 5 major finishes in his career, meaning he has finished in the top 5 position in 17 of the major championships he has participated in. That's 29% top 5 finish rate in majors. That's insane. So
Insane.
he has been very close to the top for a very long time, and he almost blew it with that double bogey on the back nine on Sunday, but he found a way to close it out, and even with that putt that he could have won it with on the 18th, instead we go to the playoff with Justin Rose, and it was just that one hole, and that's all it took for Rory. So
that's all it took. And that's the thing, too, is whenever Justin stuck that first one, I was like, pressure's on, Rory.
yeah.
And then he put it just a little bit closer on that backspin. I was like, my dog.
So good.
And I'll be honest, like I'm not like, my family's big Rory fans. We treat the Masters pretty special. Like everybody gathered at the house, tomato cheese sandwiches.
Your house?
No, we went over to Ashley and John.
Okay,
So it's
that's
one of those deals.
nice
We all sat there. We had the kids like laid out on the floor, tomato cheese sandwiches. We had the dips. We had the John Daly's made. It was great. But for Rory, they're all big fans, and I like Rory, but definitely during the live times, I was like, he's kind of a little whiny prick sometimes. I'm not I kind of faded on him, and I think I've really started to pick up on Bryson because, to be honest, I subscribed to the YouTube. I think I've started to like the guy. He's made a big change. So I was hoping after he made that birdie on Saturday, I was like, we're going to have a true showdown. Like, Roy's just going to try to hold on. And he said, he was like, I was nervous as crap, dude. I was so nervous coming into Sunday, which I could only imagine, like, all that pressure. But as the Sunday went on, I was like, don't do this, man. Don't do this. So,
do you think it helped him that Bryson sort of fell off a bunch?
I think it made it worse.
You think it made it worse?
I think it made it worse because I think Bryson plays slow, which Roy does not like to do. I think seeing that out there didn't drive up the competition. Like, hey, I got to match this. Like, he's like, I'm going to wait on him to shoot another shot, or he's made this, or they even matched each other when they hit in the sand pit. And I was like, they literally hit the same shot. And I was like, what are you doing? So those moments where I was like, I think Bryson playing bad made him play worse. And the nerves and all this stuff, I guess he didn't talk to him the whole day. I'm sure you guys saw that. But when Rory stuck that on 15, it gave him the juice. I was like, just hold on, buddy. But Rose was tearing it up.
He was. It looked like he was
tearing it up, dude. And so when he went to a playoff, I don't know about you, the fact that he had to kind of choke and survive, did it make it more meaningful?
Yeah, I definitely believe so. I think he obviously would have rather not gone to the playoff, but I think it did make it more meaningful where it was like, is this going to happen again? Is this guy really going to come up short again? And then he finally overcame it, finally ended up winning. And look, personally, I didn't get emotional while watching it, but I do know some that did get emotional.
My wife cried.
She's like,
I don't even watch golf.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't even like golf that much. But she was just hurt. She was just tearing up, giving a bottle.
Feel good.
Yeah. It's hilarious, dude. I was like, it happens, man.
It's a big moment in his career. So shout out to Rory. Really happy for him. And just a big time moment for him.
One of the best Masters I've watched.
So, yeah.
Besides the Tiger 19, this is one of the best. And I love this. It's like, I'd say to me, Super Bowl is way up there. I love March Madness, and Masters is very close.
Ooh,
yeah, I would say.
23.
Yeah.
Over the NBA Finals?
Oh, way over the NBA Finals. Yeah. I mean, Masters Week is just special. Special. Love it.
I really didn't get into the Masters until I moved here, if I'm being honest.
It is a big thing in the South. And
yeah. Well, even in Louisiana, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we're a big golf town.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, when I started working with Wells and David and them talking about how like they, there were so many of the players that were from the Chattanooga area, went to Georgia, went to Baylor, the whole thing. It was, okay, like this is kind of cool to cover now. There's some guys there that we can root for with Chattanooga roots. So that kind of really got me going into golf. And then Full Swing was awesome. And I
never watched Full Swing. I wanted to. That's where Hannah kind of started picking up in golf. She watched it.
You should. It's really good.
During the old pregnancy. So
even if you, I know it's way like it's old now, but like I found myself like not being huge into golf, like rewatching that like when it had already come out, and I kind of watched it a little bit late. was like, I didn't really know what happened in some of these tournaments. So I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, oh, how's this guy going to do? Is he going to win? How's he going to fare? You know, this, that, and the other thing. Like, there are just so many good stories, and it really humanizes these guys on the golf course that you don't always get a chance to kind of see their personality, because they've got to be, golf is sort of that buttoned up sport.
It is,
you know, but it's fun. And speaking of buttoned up, and I don't mean to cut you off there, but you mentioned Bryson, and I wanted to share the story. I don't know if you guys saw it. I may have shared it in the group chat, but apparently after Saturday, he went walking around the neighborhood that he rented a house for in Augusta. And he just like ran into some guys that had like a putting green in their backyard. He spent like an hour out there rolling putts with them, shooting
Dude,
shit.
that'd be so much fun if like you and your boys just out there cracking a couple cold ones, and here comes Bryson
just rolling up. Just, hey, can I roll some putts with you guys? You know, can I cut up? Can I have a beer or two?
They must have been a good hang. You don't hang around for an hour.
No,
if you're like a bunch of weirdos.
Exactly. I thought that was a cool story from the Masters.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, because I know like F1 took off because of that, and I think Full Swing helped as well. Netflix, good job. Great job.
They've got a Brett Favre documentary, tell-all documentary coming out on Netflix. I saw.
Okay.
Chase in stun mode right now.
I've never had somebody fall off in my mindset as far as Brett Favre has.
He is really falling off. It sucks.
He's so weird.
It sucks. I hate it because I loved him so much growing up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
God, he was one of the big reasons why I became a Packers fan. And yeah, he's just sort of fallen off way off. And it started obviously with the Minnesota Vikings thing. I'll never forgive him. And Aaron, you better not freaking do the same thing. Or
He's coming back, buddy.
I'm going to be so pissed at you. I'm going to be so mad.
It's going to come back in full swing.
I see what you did there. But good sound effects, Joseph. All right, should we get to the Schumpert interview?
Let's do it.
I think we should.
All right, well, Ryan Schumpert will be joining us next. Hang tight. It's a great conversation.
Very special guest.
A very special guest. We love, whenever we talk Vols, I feel like it just makes sense to bring this man on. He is the Rocky Top Insider for RockyTopInsider.com. RTI podcast. He covers the football, the baseball, the basketball, all things. He's traveled all across the country following this team for the last handful of years. He is a VFL. He is an alumni of the University of Tennessee. He is the one, the only, Mr. Ryan Schumpert.
What an introduction. Yeah, I sure hope I don't have to pay Nico. I might be in indentured servitude for a handful of years if I gotta cut the check for Nico. But appreciate you guys having me on, even though it's maybe not the best of circumstances for a little mid-April Tennessee football discussion.
Welcome to the show, right? Like, it's gonna be a weird spring, every spring probably for the next 3 or 4 years, man. So I hope you didn't have any vacations planned.
No, not until July, not until after baseball season's over. So no issues there.
Yeah, because I guess you just got back from Ole Miss, huh?
No, I was actually, which thank goodness I was. But Rick Butler, my coworker, he's getting married here at the end of next month. Maybe it started June, 1 of the 2.
Okay.
I should maybe know the date of it, but we'll figure it out as we go. But he had a wedding shower in Texas over the weekend. So I was going to go to Ole Miss for baseball, but because of that, I was like, no, I need to stay and cover a spring game because we weren't going to have anyone to do it otherwise. And, thank goodness I did, because the spring game turned more important than any spring game ever by Friday morning. And certainly that snowball just kind of kept on going down the hill in the Saturday.
What a massacre throughout the media, because it really did feel disgusting on both parts, because when you're still figuring out like who's actually right, who's actually wrong. I know G and I, we just talked about, like, we're happy for Heupel. I think you made the right call and at least setting some sort of precedent. Like, whoever picks him up is going to look like a bad guy. So speaking of, like, what was the vibe like at the spring game? I mean, I know it's down this year and spring games are dying and all the stuff, but what was it like on Saturday?
Yeah, it was a little strange. I mean, it's just the game itself was just such an afterthought to everything else that was going on. So that just gave it a weird vibe. I mean, Josh Heupel's press conference afterwards was like 15, 16 minutes, which is pretty long for one of his press conferences. And I think he was asked one question about the game, and it was about how the quarterbacks, Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre, fared. Every other question was about Nico. And I'll give Heupel credit. He typically isn't one that likes to talk about that type of stuff, but I think he knew that was what needed to be talked about, and he wasn't short with people or agitated. He was just kind of relaxed and calm, cool, and collected. But no, it was definitely a weird vibe, and I'll say probably a little behind the scenes story, maybe the funniest part of the day as I walk into the press conference room down at like the field level of Neyland Stadium before the game starts, and was just in there doing a little bit of work. And they got a bunch of decorations or photos on the wall. Like they have one wall that's just lined with like every time Tennessee's massive Sports Illustrated covers of every time Tennessee's been on, and got pictures like that. And they've had a little quartet of like picture, makes a box. That was like when College Game Day was here a couple years ago. A picture of Joe Milton, a picture of Hendon Hooker, and the fourth picture was empty. It had been removed by the time Neyland Stadium opened to the media.
Dang, dude.
Quick.
Good past season. So that was pretty funny. And, walking in and seeing that 90 minutes before the game or the scrimmage started was, weird and a pretty good precedent for what was to come the rest of the day.
All right, so talk to me a little bit about just your general thoughts about this whole situation and Nico not showing up, and then how quickly it just happened where it just seemed like, well, he didn't show up for practice, and then, oh, by the way, like he's out at Tennessee. He's going to the transfer portal. Heupel has made it clear that he's not coming back, and we wish him the best and thank him and this, that, and the other things. Like, what was running through your mind this weekend as all of this was unfolding and everything was happening there before the spring game, during the spring game, after the spring game, now that you've got a couple of days to sort of think about it and digest it?
Yeah, I think just going chronologically, like probably 10, 15 minutes before the NACO thing report on Thursday, the original report, I kind of got tipped off that was happening, or NACO's was about to put out a report on it, and read the report, and it didn't seem anything that crazy to me. I mean, there was obviously conversations and rumors that Nico was going to enter the portal back in December after the season ended, and some rumblings throughout the spring, nothing super substantial. So, that didn't seem crazy. I'd gone to bed on Thursday night by the time Nico's dad had to tweet attacking Nico. So, I wake up and see that. And in Tennessee, which really from a media standpoint, I want to break it what it was for Tennessee. Friday's practice was never going to be open to the media, like on a schedule, not open to the media at any point, which most of the ones in spring practice were open, for their normal 20 minutes. Which the one thing those things are good for the media is just to see who's out there, who's injured. And so like the biggest story of who's not out there came on a day we weren't there. But I'll just say Tennessee practices early in the morning. You hear pretty early on that he's not there, like, I don't know, mid-morning. And it's like, all right, well, this feels real now for the first time. And you continue to hear the fallout of, all right, Tennessee can't get in touch with them. And I would say by late afternoon Friday, I was kind of in the boat of, all right, I'd be surprised if he's back at this point. Like, this is just, I don't know how you come back from this from a standpoint of this is your quarterback and supposed to be the leader of your team. And I don't know how you can maintain the respect of the locker room if you're Josh Heupel, if you let this guy come back. And especially at that point, it's going to have to be more money than he was making, maybe not the $4 million that he was asking for. But I mean, y'all said it. It was very, very quick. And look, I don't think Nico was going to come back anyway at that point, but I definitely think Josh Heupel's hand was kind of forced. It would have just been a terrible, terrible decision to let him come back and to cave into his demands at that point when you're talking about the future of the football program and even just with this specific team and trying to maintain hold and respect of the locker room.
Yeah, you guys are so tapped in too. And when those tweets or reports come out, it's like where there's smoke, there's fire, dude. So that was one of those things that everybody blasting Nico was like, I don't know, man. There's got to be something to it. And to kind of wonder off that, I guess, is it the uncle or the dad?
It's dad.
It's the dad. It's the dad, right? So,
yep.
With dad, have you heard anything before that? Was he issues, or was it just like besides the December part? Has there been stuff even since the beginning? I mean, I know we call it what it is. Like Nico came for cash because we offered the highest bid at the time. so we shouldn't be expecting anything else. But have you heard any rumblings? Like, was he a problem? Was he an issue before that?
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't maybe go as far as issue. High maintenance would probably be like a little bit toned down. I do think that's accurate. I do remember hearing back in 22 before Nico had gotten to campus when he was committed, that like after Tennessee beat Alabama, like they were trying to negotiate for more money, and I'm like, did these guys understand how negotiation works? Tennessee just beat Alabama without Nico. Like they, and I even had thought time when they signed him, it's like if they knew how good they were going to be in 22, like I'm not sure they would have committed all this stuff to him. Like they kind of felt like when they were going after him, you know, they had a good first season, but nothing special. Kind of trying to jumpstart the program, and then you jumpstarted in 22 with a fantastic season, and it didn't feel as necessary at that point. So that would kind of be the one thing I'd point back to. And you know, he was always around a lot. Nico's dad was during the season, during the off season, even at spring practices, frequently at practice. But you know, I'd stop short of saying a problem from what I'd heard. Maybe just a little more high maintenance. And yeah, it's really one of the great PR blunders of all time. Like sure, Tennessee fans would have been mad, but if he would have gone to practice on Friday and played in the spring game on Saturday, and today or Tuesday, you know, it was announced that he was going to leave, like nobody nationally would be mad at Nico.
No.
And for just to butcher it the way that they did, the court of public opinion, I would think this would be a turnoff to a number of schools, how he's handled the situation. And you're leaving in spring too, not December. You know, a lot of these spots that are open, they were filled in back in December and January, so there's less spots to go. And I think that's the, you know, and you just said it, Chase, and that's the thing. Like, it's all super positive for Josh Heupel, and I think he handled the situation well. But at the same time, like Tennessee made a huge gamble going after this kid and committing everything that they did, and it was pretty clear he was coming to Tennessee for financial gain. That's why he was coming to Tennessee, because they were the highest bidder. And when he leaves, because of money, like you can't be mad at the kid. Like you can't be like, oh, poor Josh Heupel. Like you knew what you were getting into. Tennessee knew what they were getting into. With this was a possibility. But again, Nico's campus just went about it all so poorly that it is everybody kind of bashing Nico and everybody being like, heck yeah, Heupel. Like he did what he should have done, and he did do what he should have done. But it kind of overshadows the inherent risk that he took in the first place that really ended up backfiring on him.
Big time.
While we're on the subject of Nico's PR blunder and how this has played out for him so far, as far as teams go, because at this point now we've heard North Carolina was a player and they've moved out. They're looking at somebody else in the transfer portal. Is there anybody that you've heard or any names or any schools that you think are, I guess, in the running? Don't go as far to say a favorite, but there's schools that you're hearing that might take a chance, might be, you know, in the ballpark somewhere for Nico. Probably not in what he wants after this PR nightmare. He'll be lucky to get, I think, half of what he was getting at Tennessee. But are there any schools that you have your eyes on? Anybody that you're just like, these are the schools that I would think are potentially willing to commit to Nico regardless of what's happened so far?
Yeah, I think, look, there's been like a number of schools that have been mentioned, and it feels like most of those, like North Carolina, have kind of gone by the wayside and been weeded out. UCLA is the one that remains, and it feels like they're pretty desperate for a quarterback and not in a great spot. The hilarious part about that is Nico's brother was committed to UCLA for a long time and then flipped to Arkansas on signing day, just from what it sounded like, because Arkansas offered more money, sight unseen, had never visited Fayetteville. Maybe he was there for the Tennessee game last year and some bad memories from that. But no visits or anything like that. So UCLA seems like the school. And look, like I could see him maybe even making on the surface more than he got at Tennessee. Definitely not $4 million. But that's the hilarious thing is like by the time, even if he does make a pretty substantial amount more than he makes at Tennessee, let's say he gets $3 million there. When you factor in the taxes, he's going to make less money. So,
and he's not going to go to a great program. Like that's the thing. Like you're not going to get a better spot than you would have had at Tennessee to try and win. Like you're getting $2 million You have a good spot to win this year in the SEC, the best football conference in the country. How greedy can you be to say, hey, I want $2 more million? Now he's not even going to get it, and he's going to be in a worse spot.
1,000%. And like even before some of these schools have been weeded out, it was like, all right, he might be able to get more money somewhere, but not in a spot that would have him set up as well. And that's again where the blunder of him. If he was going to leave, he should have done it in December and January. I think he would have had a much better interest in. And it's just such a short-sighted decision. Like this is a big year for Nico's pro prospects. And look, like I'll be the first to say, I don't think Tennessee has done the best job surrounding him with talent, but at least there's continuity there, and he understands the offense. He's been in it for 2 years. And if he was smart, he would have said, you don't have to pay me more, but take that $1 million more and go get me some receivers. And he'd make a whole lot more money in a year if he got better supporting cast at Tennessee this year. And he had a nice season, a jump start second year. He'd go from, maybe a second round pick to a top 15 pick. And then all of a sudden he's making $2-3 million more immediately next spring. And then, that same thing over the next 4 years to where now it's gone in the complete opposite direction to wherever he lands. Let's say it is a UCLA. You're not playing in the Pac-12 anymore. You're playing in the Big Ten, a very good football conference on I won't say one of the worst teams, but a bottom half team in the Big Ten with a completely new supporting cast and a completely new offense. Like that side of it too is just so short-sighted of chasing the money, because it's hard to imagine he's going to have himself in a good draft spot at this time next year to where he doesn't just have to go back to school or go somewhere else and try to improve his stock again in what I guess would be the 2026 season.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, his pro career specifically, because when I thought about him transferring out, my first initial reaction was, okay, so he's going to win a Heisman under Lincoln Riley. Like that's what's going to happen. He's going to go to USC. The quarterback going to gurus flip him, and he's going to win the Heisman in 2026. So looking forward, I wanted to run this by you, Sean, and I wanted to Chase, Greg, get your thoughts as well. I think because the word on the street is Nico's hired an actual agent now. And it's not just his dad representing him or his uncle representing him anymore. It's an actual agent, somebody that actually knows the business and knows how to get something that's fair for Nico with what's happened and also something that is good for him. So looking forward, I think the pro career is the way that you make up what you lost from Tennessee. I think the best play is for him to somehow, some way find his way onto that roster of USC. And I know they're not going to pay you what you want, but if you can up your draft stock the way you want to with USC, playing for Lincoln Riley, you've seen him do it with Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, and the list just, I could pull out a scroll of a list of names that he's put in the NFL. That feels like the best strategy for Nico specifically, because after we remember he's still a football player, he's still just a kid, and I know it's easy to take shots at Nico, but part of this is just bad representation for him. So he still has to try to find a way to accomplish that ultimate goal of getting to the NFL. So I thought USC would be, if they're even a player. Now, this is all speculation. I'm not saying USC has made a move. I'm not saying there's any interest from USC. There could not be. They could be cold, and Lincoln could be like, no, I'm good with Sam Hurd and Jordan Mailata. I don't want to bring in a fourth quarterback for this competition. But what do you think as far as putting emphasis from here out on the NFL and trying to go somewhere where you can really be developed as a quarterback, take less money now, and make more money in the future?
Yeah, I think that's the smart move. That's where my mind first went to. It was USC when the reports were out there, and Friday when it becomes more and more likely that he's going to leave, I was like, USC makes the most sense. It doesn't seem like there's been a ton of buzz, which would make me think USC doesn't have a ton of interest, because I would think if they did, Nico would be very interested.
You'd hear that knocking somewhere.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen it yet.
Exactly. So no, I'm with you. Like wherever he goes, I think he should go for 2 years. I don't think he should leave after a year. I think he should spend 4 years in college now at this point, have 2 years to learn a system, to get continuity, to just be able to build basically next offseason. I mean, everything for him now is just going to be so rushed going forward. That it's just hard for me to think that he's really going to hit the ground running and have a great season somewhere next year. So I agree. The pro prospects is And that should be priority number one at this point for Nico and his camp. And USC, I wouldn't think there's really any better places for him to do it than at USC.
Yeah, I was going to say, no disrespect to Deshaun Foster, the UCLA head football coach, but Lincoln Riley, Deshaun Foster. I mean, look, Lincoln's had a lot more success developing quarterbacks. Look, Deshaun Foster had obviously a standout career in the NFL and at UCLA, but it's not the same level of quarterback coaching.
Yeah, they don't have. There's not 3 Heisman winners in that.
No, sure isn't. All right, so I kind of. Do you have anything about Nico that you want to ask? I kind of want to ask about the other quarterbacks there, but if you still had something about Nico,
the only thing I was going to ask: do you think his family shows up for the Arkansas-Tennessee game?
I said this to somebody. Actually, I think it was Rob Lewis. We were sitting at the airport waiting for trying to catch Rodney Rice after his Tennessee visit, and I said the funniest possible outcome, and I don't know where Madden is on the Arkansas depth chart. That's Nico's younger brother. But the funniest possible outcome is if Madden is starting that game for Arkansas when they come to Tennessee. It doesn't seem likely given he's a true freshman, but boy, would that be it would be like Spencer Rattler coming back in 2023. I think that would probably be the closest thing to that, where like a team that's not really a rival, not a big rival, but just like a singular player. And poor Madden, he wouldn't have deserved any of this. But a singular player that would have the vitriol from everybody in the stadium. That's like the closest thing I think you could get to it.
100%.
For what it's worth, right now on our lads, the depth chart website, they've got Madden Iamaliava number 3. So doesn't seem likely. But
no,
we'll
does not.
Yeah,
you need like an early, which knock on wood, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, you don't want
I don't even know who's going to be to start. Not wishing injury, but for it to happen, you probably need the starting quarterback to get injured early, and then the backup to just have been terrible before the game, to where they're in the got to try something else out mode.
They've got Taylon Green, redshirt senior, and then AJ Jackson, a redshirt freshman as well.
Okay.
And speaking of quarterbacks, Tennessee's left with just a couple now with George McIntyre and Merklinger.
Yep.
As well. Talk to us about those guys, the prospect of them moving forward. Who do you think has the leg up here? Obviously, Merklinger's been here. McIntyre, obviously a highly recruited prospect. Talk to us about those two guys and the prospect of them starting at quarterback moving forward for Tennessee.
Yeah, I definitely think Merklinger is further along at this point, as you would expect, just with having a full extra year in the program. So he would be the guy I think is ahead of. They've both obviously played very, very little. Merklinger was a 4-year starter in high school for whatever that's worth. I think it was 3A Georgia football, so not the biggest classification by any means. And then McIntyre played, at Berlin Academy and in the Nashville area, and that's in the big private school league in Tennessee, a really good league. Obviously, same league as Macaulay and Baylor in y'all's neck of the woods, and BA was not particularly good either of McIntyre's last 2 years. They were real bad his junior year and then better his senior year. So I tend to think it's going to be a guy in the portal that's going to be the starting quarterback for Tennessee. I mean, they have to go get somebody. They just have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. And I mean 2 scholarship quarterbacks. They don't even have a walk-on quarterback on the roster. Literally 2 quarterbacks. So
you got
I lean toward
dude, sling it out there, Shump.
So I think they'll go get somebody, and probably someone that needs to be a starter, because to me it feels like, I don't know how far McIntyre is away, but man, that's a lot to put on somebody. As a true freshman to be a starter in the SEC, and then Merklinger to me kind of feels like he's still probably a year away. I think a very, very capable backup if he needs to be the starter. I don't think this wheels would necessarily fall off for Tennessee, but I'd imagine their best options to try to find someone in the portal.
Anybody you got your eye on? Particular? I mean, I know people are kind of hopping in. I saw more people coming in today to the transfer portal, so who knows? But anybody you've looked at?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few names like in the Big 12. The Avery Johnson guy at Kansas State with the long hair.
I would love Avery. Get that blonde man out here.
So I've seen a couple names, but none of those guys are actually in the portal to this point. So that's just purely speculation. I know the Troy quarterback entered today, but it sounds like he's North Carolina bound, which is why there's no Nico interest from Chapel Hill and Bill Belichick's group. So yeah, kind of wait and see mode at this point. But Big 12 quarterbacks are kind of some names that I've heard in that conference.
Good.
Yeah, I think, look, we've covered this up and down. Now, I guess I would ask before we let you roll, Shump, because we know we got to get up out of here. But anybody stand out to you at the spring game? I know we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, but any other positions standing out to you here in the spring game?
Yeah, I told you, just a guy that had a really nice day, and like most spring games, Tennessee just played a lot of young guys and held out a bunch of older guys as if they were even a little bit banged up, and even the ones that did play didn't play a ton. But Rodarius Jackson, who's a freshman from West Tennessee, he had a really nice day. Had a 30, 40-yard touchdown, and then really to play today. He made a one-handed contested catch on a deep ball from, I believe, McIntyre threw that one. So he had a nice day. Jack Van Dorselier, who's a true freshman as well, tight end. He had 3 touchdowns, but a little more play design, I would say, on that one than him making any sort of great plays. But I was making jokes about his Brock Bowers after the game. But yes. Spring games they don't usually show you a ton, but a couple young guys had nice days for sure.
Very cool. Well, Ryan Schumpert, appreciate you joining us as always. Make sure you hit him up on Twitter. Give him a follow there at rshump00. Check him out on RockyTopInsider.com as well. Shump, it's always good to see your face. Thanks for dropping the knowledge when it comes to all things Tennessee, as always, here on Chatt It Up Sports.
Yeah, you got it. Good talking to you, fellas. Y'all have a good one.
You're the man, Shump.